The Mercedes X-Class, the first pickup truck by Mercedes, is today in our full review on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. Today with me, with Thomas. We're going to take a detailed look on the exterior, the interior. We will present you all three different trim levels and tell you which trim level is for whom. We'll also drive this car on-road and off-road. I can promise you we got a great off-road driving part. Really look forward to that. We'll give you all the technical details and we will tell you, is it a real Mercedes? And for which target group is this vehicle? SUV customers? Just pickup customers? We will find out together. It is a very interesting vehicle, I can tell you so far. Let's dig deeper in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! I hope we won't break the vehicle. Whoa! Starting with the front. To me, I think they created something very beautiful. It is not the most rugged SUV, some look more aggressive, but styling-wise, in the elegance, hardly anything can beat it. This one is the so-called power trim with chrome elements, the top trim level, but we will soon show you all of the different trends and how they also differentiate in the front. Here, by the way, also you can get LED lights. 5.34 m or 17.5 is the total length of the Mercedes X-Class or X-Klasse as we say in Germany. Well, the markets will be also part European Union, but of course they are also looking at South America, where we are today, in Chile. For example, also Argentina, Brazil, Australia, Russia, those markets they want to attack. Not Northern America, because they think it is actually too small, because in the US often the bigger pickups succeed. This one here, as I said earlier, the power version, the highest trim, 17, 18, 19 inch. In this case, from the rims, pretty huge. Very, it's rather a street look for the rims, We also got those optional side steps here. They're not good for off-road use. They look pretty fancy, that's for sure. Chrome door handles, again, we'll soon show you the difference in the trim level. That's really interesting to step it up. And then we got this classic pickup style here. Form follows function. The loading area will stay as it is. So you do not have a choice here, because with some pickups you can get a double cab, a single cab, but that's always the way it is here right now. And I would like to know from you already right now, what do you think about design? In Germany, by the way, base price 37,000 euros. How that one goes up by the trims and by the engines, we'll also soon tell you. Form follows function also in the rear, besides the Mercedes logo, which again adds just elegance by the logo. Rear view camera, optionally also available, and as it's the power trim, the chrome elements right there. What about the vehicle platform? Well, it does share the platform with the Nissan Navara, and maybe from the rear you can also see resemblance to it. So it will also be built in a Nissan plant in Barcelona for European customers, and if you buy it in, for example, Southern America, then there will be also soon a new plant in Argentina for this one here. Let's open the hatch as well, and let me tell you also what is actually the difference with the Nissan Navara. Well, exterior-wise, of course, a little bit harsh, though this could be a little bit easier to control here. Also, they've changed, for example, the axle, rear axle, front axle, made it 7 centimeters wider to give it more stability on road and off-road. Gotten better on the own suspension setup, for example, and you will see the interior is way different. Of course, the question is again, is it Mercedes enough? That's of course what we are clearing in this very review. Well, this one here you can see you can flip down and also put some weight on it. You can leave it also down when you put a motocross bike in there and it's maybe a little bit longer and the rear tire is ending right there. There's also the possibility to get this one here in a way you have to order it then without the rear bumper, that you can fold it down to the lowest point. For example, if you want to get with a quad, for example, on here, because then it would maybe be a little bit too heavy. You have those options. And also for the loading area, 1.1 ton of payload, 1 meters 50 in length. You can get different options. You can get a cover in different ways. You can get a special sports bar, for additional visual purposes. You can also use all the tension belts here, for example. There are enough rings to install stuff. And you can also, for leisure purposes, whatever outdoor sports you're doing, you can also get special boxes where you can put things in, and then they're also secured in the rear. And I really like to use this one here, either just for picnic, for example, or putting equipment bags in here, and they can really sort out the camera equipment. That's really handy because on the inside you cannot really do it, and this has always some special charm. It might also be a reason why I think it is true, a pickup is indeed just cool. So what about some off-road features? Already telling you right now before we go off-road driving. Will be very cool, I can promise you. 60 centimeters of wading depth. So if you go through water, we will also do that today. And the normal ground clearance is 20 centimeters. Of course, then you would leave out this side guard or this side step. And if you buy this vehicle outside the EU, you will automatically get the little higher suspension. The off-road suspension is a little bit softer, 2 centimeters higher even. And if you buy it in the EU, then you will get standard the little stiffer street suspension, which is not put 2 centimeters higher. Depending on the market, you can get this suspension optionally. I will also later tell you why this is very important for the driving characteristics of this vehicle and which one you should actually go for if you have special interest in either off-road driving or then also in street driving, or if you're coming from the SUV market or if you're coming from the pickup segment. So what about engines? If you are in Africa or Middle East, you can also get a base petrol engine. This one will be the X200, just about 160 horsepower petrol engine then. However, for the EU markets and all of the most other different markets, it will start with this one here or the other ones, either 220D or the 250D. So those are 2.3 liter diesel, either with 163 horsepower or then the 190 horsepower version we have here today with the bi-turbo. And you can actually pick them between just rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and also manual gearbox, auto gearbox. This one here combined with the auto gearbox, and we also have the all-wheel drive today to show you also some off-road situations, for example. And probably a lot of the people buying those vehicles will also stay with the all-wheel drive because the markets they're aiming to are also basically off-road markets where you, for example, go around your ranch or whatever. And then later on there will also be a V6 diesel available, then 3 liter of displacement and 258 horsepower. And whereas the other engines are Nissan engines, the V6 will be the own Mercedes engine. And now let's compare the different versions of the X-Class. There's Pure, Progressive and Power. And this one here, Pure, is the entry version, more thought out for the commercial use, lower entry price and not so many shiny features. From 17, 18 and 19 inch, this one is the base 17 inch rim, so the smallest rims available. You can see that the front plate is all here in plastic, more for a rugged use, and that can also sustain some scratches and stuff. Also here the wheel arches and everything here, no side pads, those additional plates. Everything is kept rather simple. Also black plastic door handles. So this one here is really when you want to use it, for leisure time, putting stuff, maybe motorcycles on the top, or just use it for lumber or whatever. The rather rugged, simple, basic version. And I think it already looks good in that way. But let's compare the more lifestyleish versions too. But just one more quick look at the rear of the Pure version, which is also black plastic here. That's rather rugged than here as well. Don't have to be so annoyed when there are some scratches. It will look different in the other versions. To me, it is always very important to show you also the lower trim levels when we have the possibility to do so, and we do have today. So this one here, the lowest entry trim, and you can see, for example, you have basic fabric seats, but they are already nicely designed, and actually they offer the best climate comfort. So climate comfort wise, that you stay cool in summer and also warm in winter, this is the best, even better than the microfiber Alcantara, which is again more, more classy, visually attractive, for example. Also, what else you're going to see? A simple steering wheel from plastic. Still nice design, but all much simpler. Also just black decor here. And top of the dashboard, hard plastic. Again, you can choose. We will show you now the different trim levels. Also the inside of the doors, again, just for a sturdy use, everything just hard pack. But then again, you pay less money for it. However, the X-Class, of course, is never really cheap. Here and the cockpit view for the base trim level. You can see the vents. They are already quite attractive in this Mercedes style. Everything else is then easier laid out. You can very well compare it when we now show you different versions where you can see the differences. Also the rear seats here in this fabric layout. Again, I think for a base layout it looks pretty good, and those seats, you can't say anything against them. They also have them in this 2-color scheme, so perfectly fine, also quite durable they seem to be. And this is the progressive trim, would be the middle trim level basically, and you can see it here. It's not as pure as the Pure version because it also has painted features here in the lower part. You can see it right here. But then again, this part is not from chrome yet, which would be reserved for the Power variant. So something which is already optimized, more in the lifestyle direction, more beauty direction, visual part, a little bit less rugged, but not as chromish stylish than the Power version. I think this one would probably be my pick because it still has, some ruggedness as a pickup should have, but looks a little bit more than just the base Pure version. The progressive version on the interior starts also with fabric seats. And those one then, here the Dynamica, microfiber and leatherette, Artico outside, this mix is optional for the progressive, where it is standard then for the Power, so that you get the trims. This one here you can see from the interior, it looks a little bit more than the Pure, not too many differences though, more difference than come with the Power version. But I think already for a pickup, looks quite elegant. And this one here is now the high-end version, Power, and this is symbolized here by the chrome hues already here in the lower front, so not too good against scratches, but it looks more powerful. Also, we have the bigger rims here. In this case, it's 18-inch, and also those side plates, and also the door handles you can see chrome hues. So overall, a more elegant approach and less rugged. And also in the rear, you can see the abundance use of those chrome features. Again, if you want to have it a little shinier. So let's open this power car. Trim power, diamond silver by the way, is the paint. And on the inside here you can see the mix of Dinamica on the inside and Artico leatherette on the outside. My favorite mix here, it's really great. This one is standard on the power trim. And also you can see here, you can pick the black piano lacquer and also aluminum style, or here the matte wood is shown here. Those are the three options, and the matte wood really feels good and looks more natural, brings a more cozy atmosphere in this vehicle. And of course, again, a little bit more chrome use for the power variant, which is combined exterior and interior, so you always pick the whole scheme. And also the dashboard is from Artico leatherette, so adds more worthiness to the whole interior. And this is how the power trim looks from the rear. The seating surface scheme is repeated. So let's talk about suspensions and also trailer, because we have a trailer set up here. First of all, there's an independent suspension in the front, multi-link in the rear, so this is then optimized also for the heavier load. 1.1 tons of payload you can put on that cargo area, 1 meters 50 in both ways, so 150 and 150. And then what about the trailer? Well, maximum then 3.5 tons. And then this one here, the big trailer, should also be not a problem. Now let's get inside. Of course, with those side steps, they can actually help you. And I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". That leaves plenty of headroom. It is actually, quite roomy from the first impression. Just when you're tall with the knees, it can get a little bit close actually. The steering wheel can unfortunately only be lowered and just put a little bit up, and I would like to put it even more up, and of course it would be good if I could also put it towards me, and that is definitely missing. We also got the electric seat set up right here. This comes quite handy. By the way, if you wonder what I have here on my arm, I just scratched the elbow, and while traveling I want to keep it protected because it was actually a quite huge area, just that you know. And why was I changing clothes from very warm 30 degrees to quite cold 10 degrees? Well, we also had the other shots made up way up in the mountains, really high, and it was way colder there. Therefore, a little clothing mix today in our review. General, the seating position here is upright, as you know from pickup, quite comfortable. You got a good overview, so this is definitely then the suitable part for the long-term driving. And the cockpit overview here in the power trim, we got matte aluminum decor here. You see it saw it earlier. You can also go for wood, for example. And this is also the leatherette, the Artico dashboard. That looks really great. So great job, and definitely leading also visually, and also from the effects we have here in the pickup segment. Also the steering wheel, as we know it from a Mercedes SUV, for example. Then you got either 5.8 inch, you've seen it in the pure version, the smaller infotainment screen, or 8-inch. Then this is the command online system, the bigger screen, and also with the GPS. The smaller one would be the so-called Audio 20. And then you got also all the basic functions, of course, soon more details to that. The lower part of the dashboard, then again, is more hardpack and also simpler. This then is not, again, from the Mercedes parts bin. So the lower part is where it gets, a little rougher and a little more Nissan-ish, so to say. So in the big infotainment system in detail, you control it with a central knob. You can see a clear resolution of the map here. However, with the GPS software, we're not totally satisfied. Also, this system we have here, the typical Mercedes system, is not really up to date yet as for the intuitional use. You can connect your phone either via Bluetooth, or it's not equipped with this vehicle yet, pre-production one, but then you will also soon be able to plug in and use Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and so on. And from here then, again, you can also access the GPS, or you can also use then below the hotkeys. There's the hotkeys for the phone or also for the GPS. So the instruments, they are classic Mercedes, analog, one left and right and middle screen. And here also some preview of the consumption of this diesel, 7.7 liters, with a lot of steady driving also on motorway and stuff, so you can get the consumption really lower. My minimum consumption was 7.2, so if you want, you can also drive it rather fuel saving. The more you drive in the city, the more it goes up. And in front of this 7-speed auto gearbox, this is the AC unit with classic controls, and below that all the off-road controls. I will use them when we drive off-road. Here, for example, 2-wheel drive mode, rear-wheel drive, then 4-wheel drive, and when you push it, the off-road gear reduction, 4L for low. Then the hill descent control, I will also test it. And the rear differential lock, we do not necessarily need that. And this one here is the light for the loading area. Pretty interesting. And 12-volt power supply next to it. This is the middle multimedia knob, and you use this turning and pressing knob right there. Here another thing for the volume, but you can also use it as a steering wheel. Then you can have the cup holders right there. One is a little bit deeper, the other one is a little more shallow, but they are not adaptive. And below the middle armrest you can put some stuff and also have the possibility to recharge your phone. There's a USB plug right there, and also hidden, it's just underneath it, there's a second one too. And a nice feature in the main rear mirror, you can see which direction you're going. Northwest we're facing in this case. So many nice styling elements here, which really differentiate it also to other pickups and also from the Nissan platform. But then this key here, which is exactly the Nissan key but with a Mercedes badge. Come on, they could have spent at least the money to give it a real Mercedes key fob. Or what do you think? So let's get inside in the rear. It is actually quite okay to get in there, but then if I have the seat as I would be driving, I do hit the back of the seat with my knees. Also headroom wise, I do hit the ceiling, so it's nothing for tall adults here. You sit relatively high. That might be suitable for children then. You also have the ISOFIX anchor points on the outside seats. It is basically an upright, comfortable seating position, but again, nothing really if you're taller than you're a little bit caged in. So let's start the driving part. First of all, road driving, city, countryside, motorway, but you have to keep on track for the off-road driving because we have a great off-road course coming ahead, I can promise you. So, but first of all, people will also drive with this car in the city, and first important point, What about the sun that is coming in here? So the top part of the windscreen, that is very handy, has this blue shade, and therefore I'm not always in need for the real big sunshade. See right here, that is quite okay, because the problem would actually also be if I would have to use the big sunshade with my height. Same with the Nissan Navara MB300. I can't see anything. It's like it's done. Like this, I can still see something, so I can use it. But in the part where I'm actually so again, the vehicle is more set up for not so tall people. But if we compare it with the Nissan, also driving-wise, the windscreen, it suits a little bit better, I would say. So let's say now, also testing the GPS, how that one plays out. First of all, no narrow cornering here, also relatively for city. The suspension is rather stiff if you also compare it to an SUV. So a basic SUV, especially if you pick one from Mercedes, will give you definitely more comfort. You do feel that. There is a difference suspension-wise also between the Nissan and the Mercedes, because they got this 7 centimeters wider axles. They're mounted there also with a different suspension setting. You do feel that it gives you a little bit more comfort than the Nissan. Will even also play a role when we drive off-road, so also look forward to that. So when we're standing still here now, what about traffic? You do hear the traffic, so the sound installation is not bad, I would say, but it is definitely louder than in a usual SUV. This more rugged and more raw feeling you do get in a pickup truck, and that's also accounting here for the Mercedes X-Class. The steering is really easy to control. You don't need too much power. Then again, you see when I'm also cornering now, next is now a 90-degree corner, to see how far I have to turn the steering wheel. It's not that it would be 90 degree for a 90-degree corner here. For a 90-degree corner, I got one complete turnaround. And well, why would they do that actually? So it also has something to do with off-road vehicles. I will explain you that in depth when we drive the car off-road very soon. So when you're driving off-road, you need more steering way actually to be more precise. Also from the feedback the car gives you. So for someone who drives off-road quite frequently, that's again not a very bad thing. Here also the road is a little bit rough, and we do feel that it's getting transported into the cabin as well. You still have the upright seating position and also more room here in the front than also in some of the competitor cars, for example. So it still feels quite comfortable. The overview, considering it's a fairly long car, is quite good because all the windows are upright. Also very good view to the rear window. I can even very well see where the loading area is ending. The 2.3 liter diesel here in the 190 horsepower spec, then with the bi-turbo charging, 11.8 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour. It's of course not super powerful, but here it's more about the torque. Also when you got the load on there, is among best in class with 1.1 tons of payload you can put on there, and then you still have to have the power. That's the real important thing. Lane changing, by the way, here in the city, you can see the steering wheel does react on the very first steering. It's not dead in those angles, as we sometimes know from modern, easy to turn steering wheels. You feel that something is happening with the wheels, but again, you really have to turn it fairly a lot to change it. Again, when you're, for example, saying, I'm an SUV driver and then thinking about going for this one as a lifestyle SUV pickup, something like this, then you just have to know that it has this off-road background, and that's the reason for the characteristics of the steering wheel. Here you can see, for example, when I do the lane change. The diesel, when you press it gently, it doesn't come too loud into the cabin, especially in the combination here with the 7-speed automatic gearbox. You can really drive it very gently. That's very comfortable for sure. Do you need the 250D, so the higher horsepower spec? Well, it depends on the load you're carrying. So when you're using it mainly for lifestyle purposes, and when you have a hobby where you put things on the loading area which are not that heavy, or from the construction market or whatever, that's not entirely necessary. This one here, the stronger version, is really recommendable when you have a heavy trailer behind. 3.2 tons if you go for the rear-wheel drive, 3.5 tons if you go with the all-wheel drive. You can have as a total towing capacity. And speaking about, again, manual and automatic gearbox, again, I can really recommend the automatic gearbox. It brings so much more comfort, especially when this car is a little bit rougher, Also, the shifting is not that smooth then, so the automatic gearbox is probably one of the features I would first click on there. Also, in off-road driving, it gives you a lot of advantages then, especially if you're not very experienced off-road driver. But I will talk more about that also then in the off-road driving part. Soon we will also get to a little faster road, and we can also experience it right there. So, to get used to the traffic here a little bit, let's get on the right. It's good that when you drive such a pickup truck, people usually don't have a problem with making room for you. Because, well, if they don't, you make the room yourself. And you always get something like an authority here. On the road you have a big road presence for sure. Although this is not entirely a huge pickup if you compare it with others. But again, in most of the situations, people are rather unlucky than when they hit you than the other way around. Unless you have, we are driving this power trim here. The power trim has those chrome elements which are more set on a shiny way. Here on the inside, when I look at the matte aluminum, it's quite nice atmosphere. Also showed you earlier this wood style atmosphere, which I would actually prefer because it brings some more cozy driving to it. Now, acceleration-wise, by the way, when you push it a little bit further, it gets a quite direct reaction, especially as we're driving without heavy load at the moment. It sounds still like an old diesel, that's for sure. You feel that it's not one of those, very modern, finely tuned Mercedes diesels which we have here. This will be a little different than when you can, at the later stage, pick the V6 diesel with 258 horsepower, 3-liter displacement. There is a big difference because the V6 diesel will then be the one that is also used by Mercedes. So they're building that engine themselves. And like consumption-wise, after we've passed some faster roads and also countryside roads, we will check the consumption for you. Because here, when you're just driving in the city, 12.5 liters, it will go down when we're on the motorway and on the countryside. And at the end of the day, I can also tell you something about the average consumption here with the 4-cylinder diesel. But we can really estimate that the consumption will not necessarily be really much higher with the V6 diesel, because you are, for example, running it then in a lower RPM range. This one here you have to push a little bit further. Then again, of course, the advantage that with these small diesel you have a lower entry price for sure. So what about suspension and tilting to the left and the right? Again, it's fairly stiff, so when I go in some slalom here now, it also keeps fairly even. Again, it's not even possible that I would force the car into harsh maneuvers, because I would have to turn the steering like all the way around and back again. So that's actually hardly possible, for sure. Big side mirrors, by the way, you can very well see what's behind you in this case. So when we go off-road later, we use the all-wheel drive mode for sure, but when we drive here on the streets, even if I have the all-wheel option, I'll stay in the two-wheel drive mode. And why is that? Well, there are different off-road systems. This one here is still like this classic rugged off-road all-wheel drive, not a modern Haldex, for example, where we have front wheel plus rear drive, something like that, on demand. No, here you can manually set either just rear drive, or when you have the all-wheel drive mode, then you basically have a 50-50 setup, front, rear, and that is fixed then, because without without the fitting differential for that, to when you, for example, when you're driving a circle, for example, and you have no differential which can even that one out, then you get problems. And also, with the you stress the car, you stress all the connecting parts between tires. You can even hear and feel that when you're with an off-road vehicle and, for example, turn the steering wheel all the way around at the maximum angle, and then hit the throttle just a little bit, then you even feel it's like this awkward sound. That's really because the tires are also basically working against themselves. You can explain it like that. So if you are driving here in the city, and let's see where we have to go now. There's a construction site. We have to pay attention to that. You should always stay in the rear drive mode. Then you have no problems. You can turn the steering wheel all the way in and stuff. But when you have this fixed all-wheel ratio, always pay attention. Use it while off-road driving at those slow speeds, and not while doing the turning circles and stuff. So would the rear-wheel drive actually be enough? For most purposes, do we go down there or right? Right or left? I don't know. Let's find out. So it's crazy with the construction site here. Let's find out. Brakes do apply, but you feel the car is basically still heavy. So you have to take that one into account for sure. So now we accelerate out. Just pressing the throttle gently, focus on Amarok, another Amarok. So the competitor cars are also right here. And now onto the motorway. From 55 kilometers an hour, we hammer the throttle. 80. And 100. So you could see how the acceleration works here. Of course, the diesel turns up very loudly then. Surely sufficient movement you got there. However, if you want to spend a lot of money for this vehicle, then the V6 will later surely do better. And also, there was also the petrol engine available in for Africa and the Middle East, so that would also be an option. But those, of course, have less power. This would be again if you're not carrying so much weight. So, as a normal cruise control available, no Distronic Plus whatsoever, but you have the same lever below the steering wheel. Now we set it to 100 kilometers an hour and start cruising on the motorway, because that's also something that will be happening quite frequently. While doing that, by the way, I see in the rear mirror where we're actually going from the direction says NE, so northeast. I mean, that's when you're going freestyle off-roading, for example, that's also something very useful. So you want to go to the right or what? No, it does. Now when we're going uphill, the car needs to get going from 80, 100 again. It is somewhat struggling. Now cruise control again. And from the noise level, well, it wasn't too quiet in the city, I have to say, but 100 kilometers an hour is a good speed, so you can really very well live with that and also drive fairly comfortable. You're also feeling that the car's a little bit wider here, axle-wise, also than the Nissan, so it feels a little bit more sovereign and calmer on the motorway. However, if you think again, also against the Mercedes SUV, it is probably the most uncomfortable suspension I've ever experienced in a Mercedes. So you do feel the effect that it's not their own entire platform. I mean, of course, if you think about a real sports car, with a 63 something AMG, they sometimes have those rather uncomfortable suspensions because they intend to have the very sporty drive. So we're getting off here. But speaking, of a suspension that is set also, on a comfortable ride. So what do I say here? All right, a little bit tricky situation here also from a motorway. The GPS, by the way, it has those two frames. So you get a detailed view on the right and a little bit more overview on the left. But from the experience I have in here now, I had it quite some times before, the GPS doesn't do the best job. So it's sometimes not entirely clear which road you really have to take. So the solutions from other manufacturers are definitely more convincing as for the GPS software. The visualization is quite clear and also the resolution, that's nice. But how the software is laid out. Now some bumpier road again, going uphill. And it's really being transported to the passenger cabin, so you have to know that. So you really have to appreciate that it's also feeling a little bit rougher. You get more of this true off-road feeling already when you're being on the road. So the diesel, again, to sum that one up, it's not the most silent one. The power is definitely sufficient. If you're looking for something more special, you should then wait for the V6 diesel. Also maybe considering that the competitor, the Volkswagen Amarok, also upgraded standard to the V6 diesel. That is also something you have to take into account for sure. So that's it for road driving here. Felt actually quite good with the rear-wheel drive, getting pushed, not pulled, and then we take the all-wheel drive now for our off-road part. So guys, let's go some off-roading with the 250D, the bi-turbo diesel here now. And I also have the automatic gearbox, which is really helpful for off-road driving, makes it so much more comfortable. And of course you can see the steering wheel moves quite a lot. So here I don't stick the thumb inside the steering wheel, I'll leave it on the steering wheel. I don't want to dislocate my thumb just in case. And we have a nice little off-road parcours. Well, little, it's actually big today. So you can enjoy a lot. Will we go right or left? To the right. Also got Matthias as instructor on board here. So he will instruct me a little bit where we exactly should go. Like this, okay. Perfect. I take the right direction here and don't crash with others. So you can see the steering wheel, you have actually enough room to turn it. This is your first drop off, and for most of the time you don't need any special variations in the off-road gears. The most of the stuff, when you're just in the all-wheel drive mode, the vehicle can actually handle on its own. Also here, the most important thing is that you just keep going slowly when you're driving off-road. This vehicle has basically enough ground clearance, about 22.5 centimeters outside the EU. In the EU versions it's a little bit less, because people will also go off-roading less. And so far, well, it does not have an air suspension, so if you think about some off-road riding with some Land Rovers or so, which we've already shown you, it's of course more comfortable. Here again, when you're more, let's say, kind of a hard off-roader, sometimes they appreciate that they have more contact to the road you have then. You feel more what's going on underneath you. But so far, it's a very uneven track here for sure, and the car handles it in a very sovereign way. So also, I'm not that used to a right-hand drive steering wheel here, but still no problems. Left or the middle?
In the middle. And we can do the banked curve.
Yeah,
the inclination.
Genau, the banked curve is ahead. And the good thing on those off-road parcours always, it's really a lot of different obstacles, and from the outside especially, it also looks so spectacular. And now when you have this, this turning angle here, sometimes when you sit inside the vehicle, you think that, oh, we are totally falling over now, because have a lot of gravitational forces pulling you towards the inside then. But the center of gravity of a vehicle is usually that low that you wouldn't really imagine how steep such a vehicle can actually go. Well, now we're coming to a part where I'd love to ride over with a motocross bike. That could be a little bit faster than as well. And considering this one does not have air suspension, it's doing it fairly well. So didn't get any big pushes into the lumbar area so far. Now we're getting to a rudder section. So longitudinal ruts surely must look funny on camera when we're rutting around here. So now we're going. This is actually a small river probably when there's enough rain falling. So going slowly because the approaching angle. Now we also hear, for example, from the front assisting camera, now from the rear. That means the sensors are active, saying, we're getting quite close to the ground. Of course, there was still some space left. We're also having this 360-degree camera on, so I can very well see what's also around me if I should not be able to see clearly out of the window. This is particularly funny when we will also have a water section, and then when you can see the front camera will go underwater. This is actually my favorite part, but we're coming to that very soon. So my first off-road impression is really, the diesel handles it very well. You get a good torque also from the lower RPM regions. I can really gently press the pedal, so enough power to get out of some ruts and stuff, and you can really very well fine-tune it. It doesn't come that roughly when you push the throttle. So now we have to go really slow.
You can test the hill ascent control in this part too.
The hill ascent control?
Yes, ascent control, yes. When you stop in the middle of the slope,
yes,
it will be
okay.
For 4 seconds.
Yeah, let's just do it. So imagine just, we're stuck or stopping in. So now we're going uphill, and so now I can just see the sky basically. And this is actually a pretty bad situation. So I'm standing here. How many degrees is that here?
It might be 27 degrees.
27 degrees, yeah, that could actually work out, yeah. And now we'll just release the brake, and usually, especially when you have a manual driven car, you fall back, and then you have to really have the clutch. You work the clutch and hammer the throttle, and Let's just see what happens here. So I release the brake. Hey, we're still standing. The car is not falling backwards, and I can easily put down the throttle. So that was a piece of cake. So you don't have to be a professional off-road driver to be able to handle this. And that's of course pretty impressive. So that is really nicely done. So, and now, actually we were going that well on that off-road parcours here that we caught up to the next vehicle, which also has a different color. But the advantage of that is that at the same time you can now see something in front of the camera the vehicle driving. So now we went up the hill first, now we're going down the hill. This will differential lock, yeah. So now the hill descent control, which is in the normal driving mode limited to 5 miles per hour maximum speed. And this is really a leap of faith. So you really have to trust in the system because usually you would steadily go slowly down the hill, use the brakes. But now I will just let the car do itself. I will release the brake, release the throttle, and then just see what the car is doing. And hopefully it will start to brake, and it does indeed. So 6 miles per hour, approximately 5, or now it's at 5. I'm doing nothing with the pedals at the moment. And so the car is checking out how each wheels are turning and not blocking entirely, but they're steadily rolling. And then even going down steep hills is no problem for you. So now again, watching the approaching angles very slowly. And again, I'm quite surprised how well the car is handling that. Also that the suspension is still comfortable enough because, well, the ground, we got some softer spots, we also got some harder stuff, some hard pack, also some rocks in the ground. They can be a little bit harsh at times. The steering characteristic, again, by the way, is very suitable for off-road driving because here it shouldn't be too progressive. On road, it's sometimes more. It's actually better when it's a little bit more progressive. You don't have to steer that much. Off-road really helps you when you have more way to turn the steering wheel around, actually. So, first of all, it doesn't come back on you too harsh. And you can be a little bit more precise, have a little bit more room to play with. So now we're going up the hill again. I think here, can we also go a little bit faster here maybe? That would work, right? So now up the hill, also best is to have a steady speed, not to hammer the throttle extremely while you're uphill.
You can use the camera here to see.
Ah, yeah. This is, for example, a situation. I can't really see where we're going left now. You know, the front hood is blocking, but I now see the front view camera. Then I can really see where we're going. I'm not hitting anything off the bushland here. It's a very nice off-road parcours, and also, you know, it's long enough that you can really learn the vehicle, and it's also entertaining for you to show you a lot of different variety. Now uphill again. My favorite parts are always, by the way, sand tracks, you know, when you can really throw the car around just a little bit in the sand, right?
Yeah. It's nice.
So this is more the soft off-road now.
When you go more than 30 kilometers, the camera
okay. Okay, yeah, that's good. Also good point. More than 30 kilometers an hour, the camera goes out. Now we have more vehicles in front of us. That's also good for the camera shot. A white one in the pure base trim level. The other one, a power trim. You can see it at the chrome plates at the rear. We are also driving this power trim. It's really a big playground here today for Mercedes pickups. Holding some distance. It really looks interesting when you look at the vehicles, how they really wobble around, how it looks different from the outside if you then compare it to the inside feeling. Nice shot here. Now then, going up the hill right again. You see those loose rocks? Therefore you have the all-wheel drive, because when you trigger some of those loose rocks, well, you might lose grip on one wheel, but the all-wheel drive then is ruling it out. This car would also be off-road capable just with the rear-wheel drive, which is available too. But of course, if you're seriously thinking about using it for an off-road purpose, then you should really go for the all-wheel drive version. I mean, that's something quite obvious. And I can again just stress the combination of the stronger diesel with the automatic gearbox is also so much more comfortable for off-road driving, because you really have the power reserves and you have the comfort of the automatic gearbox. You can just concentrate on driving then. Keep the hands on the steering wheel all the time. Don't have to play with the clutch, for example, when you're going uphill. So that really helps a lot. It's also quite foggy today, so we can see the daytime running lights of the vehicle in front of us. It's also very nice to see. So we have skipped the other vehicle, and now I want to test when I'm going down the hill without the hill descent control, just controlling it a little bit with the brakes. Now I also get a feedback that sometimes the tires are working a little bit more. But actually it's also, when it's not too steep, it's also easy to go. Just have to enter the descent slowly. That's the more. Is here right, left? It's the right, okay. That's, I think, the most important point, because when you are too fast at the get-off of the hill, well, then you maybe get some problems. It's also very interesting, by the way, sometimes when you have loose ground on the hill descent, then some off-road modes are also laid out in a way that they build actually a small hill of sand in front of the tires to brake the vehicle even more. It's also a very interesting off-road driving technique. So, next obstacle. There's a big rock. Whoa. Oh no, it's warning. Slow driving. Ooh. So.
Here you can see very well the angles, the attack angle,
yeah.
The ventral angle, and the
wow. Wow, that looks really steep now. So, if you're thinking about going here now with a normal passenger car, that would probably break the front bumper. Oh no. Well, especially when you look to the side now, it looks really crazy. But I don't hear any scratches yet. We can also take a look at the camera again. We hear the sensors beeping. Oh, that is very close for the rear now. When it's the beep sound without when it goes all the way through. Yeah, now we get to the rough stuff. But so far the ground clearance is actually totally sufficient. I also had the current generation of Nissan Navara on the off-road course. It was a little bit different. It was more like with concrete obstacles, for example, and so on the natural part it was less extreme, but on the type of obstacles, on the type of artificial obstacles, it was a little bit more extreme. So it was something different indeed. And do the cars actually feel the same? The thing is that, this different interior where you sit in, it also tricks you a little bit. So if someone would not know that the cars sit on the same platform, and probably you wouldn't realize it. But, when you know it before and then compare the driving characteristics, then you do realize some similarities. Now again, approach angle, but so far no scratches on the lower part. I mean, you have to think about for the pickup trucks, especially with the long loading area. Remember 150 meters in length. You also have quite some overhang there in the rear. So actually sometimes we also heard it with the sensors that the rear overhang was more critical than the front overhang. Now again we got a good shot of the white vehicle in front of us. Getting quite narrow. this is another thing. So you're not sitting too far away from the front axle. And that makes the car also very well controllable. The rear you just, mainly pull with you. But I have no point, the feeling that I wouldn't have control over the car, or that I would not know where the car would be ending, for example. Then together with the camera system, you can very well estimate it, and that helps you, for example, also when parking inside the city. Of course, also when you're visiting your ranch or something, because you have to think about, especially in Australia, Southern America, or in Russia, where this car will also be sold mainly. The off-road use will definitely also play a role with this car. So at the moment I think we seem to be a little bit faster than the white vehicle. That a little S corner right here. It's also getting a little bit dusty and sandy. You can see here how much I can do from the steering work. But actually the steering itself is pretty light, and you can see I can also easily slide it back again. Oh, that looks cool now. Because it goes uphill, and at the same time we lay it a little bit sidewards. A dried out river. Would be even more fun if we would have some water here now. In those situations, you can take a look at the camera again. You can really see where you're going. Now finally, the water crossing. Haha. Favorite part. So you can take a look how the first vehicle goes through there. What's the maximum speed we can go through there? Do you know?
We have to do it really slow.
Yeah.
Not to hit the pod.
Okay, so we just basically go like a hill descent, for example. Yeah.
So Martin, you want to
That looks really cool. Nice. And also when the car's getting off the the water pond and the water's rinsing all over the place, that looks really nice. And we'll also take a look at the front camera. So there's this first step here. Let me get in. I hope I don't get wet feet. So now the rear axle. Yeah, now the front camera will be underwater, at least half. It also looks cool from the drone view from above. And the funny thing is that this water pond looks the most spectacular from the outside, but from the inside, it's actually one of the least spectacular things. That is also definitely a funny fact. So that's one full round, Or?
Yes, we are missing just the steps.
Okay.
And then we are finished.
Okay, where are the steps?
We are going now there.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, steps is also another fun part for sure. So now we're heading to a steeper ascent, and what you can also do, putting the vehicle to neutral and then push it here with the turning knob and putting to 4L, and then we got the low mode, so that is the off-road gear reduction. That means we cannot go that fast in total speed, but we basically have more support, more power than in the lower speed area. This one is then really for harsh off-road situations where we really need it. So, and here of course the question is always how fast do you go, that it's not too uncomfortable, but you can still have some rolling up the hill, because going too slow is also not that good then when you have a steep ascent. So we're going back to the other mode then. I think the vehicle could probably also have managed without the low mode, I think, but Usually, nowadays, you just go in the normal all-wheel drive mode and just go.
Now here we will have a stairs before in front of us. We have to settle the vehicle in front of the stair.
Very nice. Now we're going to the steps area. So just steer it from the outside. We get very straight to it. Okay. Wow, and on the camera it really looks like, well, it's over, basically. So would you go with the hill descent control or just slowly?
We go with the DSR connected and we go into the first step, we stop there and then you release the brake pedal and the vehicle will go down.
So basically...
You have to check
it's on. Yeah. So the first stair we just approach now very slowly, manually. It's like going, off a cliff, basically, from the visual part now. So I'm approaching the first step. Now we're on it. And now we just release the brakes.
It's on, it's connected to the DSR.
It's also DSR.
Okay, so you release the brake.
Shall I really do that, guys? Do you think so? We can try that. I hope we won't break the vehicle. Whoa! So the first thing, oh my god, now it's all over. But then the system catches up and just running down the stairs. That is also pretty impressive. So, actually one of the most fun parts for the latter part here of this off-road ride. So, I think that's it. Well, with the course, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, really very nice course, different obstacles. I also hope you enjoyed our off-road riding part. And now to our conclusion for today, Mercedes X-Class. For sure, there are other pickups that look a little bit stronger, more rugged. However, in the elegance, nothing can beat this. So I think exterior design-wise, a great job. And you can also pick those different design approaches if you want it a little bit more subtle, a little bit more commercial, easier, simpler, or if you want this, shiny chrome finish and want to, go out to the world, show, this is my chrome polished pickup. So you can really pick both and also something in between. I think that's also a nice approach. Even in the interior, probably the most beautiful pickup interior I've seen so far. That worked out pretty well, especially the upper part, and also that you can pick there. Great seating choices there as well, premium, sustainable, and also very good looking. So those are definitely the pleasing parts of this vehicle. There are some points in the lower interior area, door handles, the rear handle for example, which do not exactly live up to the Mercedes reputation. And those are the things where you can still see that they are sharing a platform with the Nissan. Not saying that the Nissan is a bad vehicle, but when you pay, at the end maybe the double the price for such a vehicle, then you also want perfection in more areas. Driving-wise, off-road was a very good performance. I also felt that the wider axles also performed a little bit better than, for example, the direct competitor with the Nissan Navara. On-road, however, I found a little bit too stiff, especially with the normal street suspension setup, which you usually get, for example, in European countries. It will be a little bit different with the off-road suspension. I told you that it sits a little bit higher and is, for example, thought out as a standard for South American markets, Australia, Russia, and so on. It really depends on the market which one do you get, and maybe on some markets you can also pick which suspension you should get. And I can just tell you that I would actually, even if I drive it on the road, would still go for the little higher off-road suspension, that you have more of a soft feeling in the suspension also when driving on-road. Because when I go for a pickup, I would actually also expect that. They thought they give more driving dynamics, so it can, for example, pass some, high-speed avoidance tests, for example. That works pretty well with this vehicle. But then again, the question is if that would be the most important point. So, if you are already buying or driving a pickup and then say, I want something more premium, something more fancy, I think that's the right thing to go to. But if you think, you know, I want a Mercedes SUV and the comfort of a Mercedes SUV, but want something more, you know, a little different, because everyone is driving SUVs these days, I want something more extraordinary. I'm not exactly sure if it would be the right vehicle for you, because it could be too rough in the road driving. Again, if you go for the off-road suspension, it could be a little bit better. But I think you have to know that you cannot expect the typical Mercedes SUV comfort, because it is so extremely superb. And that's actually among all the good things that this car has. The problem is that the other Mercedes cars are so excellent that when you put a Mercedes badge on something like this here, it has to live up to the expectations. And to some part it does, and to some part it does not. And I've told you which are those parts. You can draw your own conclusion then. I hope we could shed light on this very interesting vehicle, that you can also compare it to the other competitors and share your experience. If you're already driving a pickup and thinking about this vehicle, put it in the comments, and also your experience as a car driver yourself in this segment. Thank you so much for watching. Now looking forward to your feedback.